Hi guys, Al Bigley back again with a look at my latest cosplay, the classic Silver and Bronze Age comic book Vision. So come along behind the scenes with me and I'll show you how I put this cosplay together. Let's start out by talking a little bit about the character. The character was first created in the late 60s in a 1968 issue of the Avengers by Roy Thomas. He was based on a 1940s timely Marvel character also called the Vision. Roy was a big fan of the Golden Age 40s characters and wanted to find a way to bring this Vision into the then modern Marvel continuity. So using the name and some of the costume details, Roy created a very Mr. Spock-like character for the Avengers. Like Mr. Spock, the Vision was also an outsider, but not because he was an alien, but because he was a Synthazoid, a type of robotic android, one who now had to try to understand the ways of man and all the others he came into contact with. The character soon became a very popular member of the Avengers in the 70s, and again, like Spock, the Vision suddenly became a fan favorite within the group. Before long, he was being featured on several Avengers comic book covers. Soon he became a permanent fixture on each issue's cover, right next to the logo itself. Even though Marvel never gave the Vision his own comic at the time, he was still immensely popular and appeared in other titles like Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2-in-1. The recent Marvel movies also gave us the Vision, but in a greatly changed overall look. This version also had the green bodysuit, gold cape, red skin, but just didn't have the same look or feel or impact as his comic book inspiration. Now, when designing this version of the Vision, of course I'm doing the comic book Vision, but always some changes have to be made for bringing these characters into real life in 3 dimensions, comfort, mobility, and all those things. So I wanted to design his bodysuit much like the comics version, but maybe a few nods to the synthetic origins of the Vision, but also the recent Avengers version, which is really heavily emphasizes his robotic nature. So as you can see in my designs, I tried to use the basic green and gold comic book look for the character, but I incorporated some ideas of circuitry, some repeating motifs of circuitry and circuit boards and things like that throughout the costume. And I wanted to keep this subtle enough where you'd really have to examine up close what that pattern is, that it is in fact the idea of circuit boards and whatnot, wiring and things like that. You'll notice too in areas where I wanted highlights and shading for muscle tone, instead of coming in with overtones of lighter and darker peaks and valleys using the airbrush in Photoshop where I designed this costume, I tried to make that circuitry motif lighter or darker where needed. Instead of hitting everything with just lighter highlights or darker tones, I wanted it to be a bit more subtle and have that repeating motif become lighter or darker where needed. And here is the actual costume. Unlike a lot of my costumes, I got this with an attached hood, which you have to be careful about if you're doing a character like Captain America or Batman, because usually these hoods are cut with a very narrow jaw. And for characters like Captain America or Batman, where you want a lot of the jaw showing, you end up with this kind of effect, which may not be what you want, but in the case of the Vision, I knew early on I'd have some sort of face mask over the exposed portion of my face. And here is that repeating circuitry motif up close. Thank heavens for Photoshop's cut and paste ability. Now, I knew I'd be adding external gloves and boots, but for the sleeves, I did add some interesting little things here, like the pointed upper areas of the gloves. I did the same thing for the boots, knowing the boots would be very simple, flat-topped boots. And also you can see I gave things the idea of phasing in and out, letting some things fade, letting some things just remain bold and very solid. And that's really it. That motif repeats all over the suit. You'll see, of course, I had to add Velcro for attaching the collar and the cape to various points. But that's pretty much it for the bodysuit. Now let's take a look at some of the accessories. So for the mask, like I told you earlier, I knew I'd be putting a faceplate, a red faceplate. Was not thinking about painting my face in any way, over the hood or under it. So I didn't worry again about that narrow jaw the hood might give me, because I'd have something covering it. So when I finally found this at Party City Spirit Halloween stores, which is just your basic red mask, it comes in all kinds of colors. You've seen them at the stores. They come in your team's favorite color. They come in teal. They come in white. I decided, yes, I think I will attach this over the hood. So, using this mask, I came in with some spray paint over some of the highlighted areas, like the cheeks and nose. Took some black and some brown and deep reds and came under to further add some shading under the cheeks, under the nose, under the lips, things like that. You will see I had to make a decision. Do I cut out that top widow's peak area so the green of the hood shows through, or do I include it with the actual mask as it attaches over that hood? I decided, of course, to do the latter. Added a little, this is actually a child's ring from the Spirit Halloween store. It's like a spider ring. I cut off a few of the legs, carefully inserted. And you'll also see I tried to continue a little bit of that techno motif. Again, using templates I'm about to show you. A little bit on his chin. A little bit on the cheeks, wherever I wanted some highlights. Again, some of those things you got to get pretty close to see. For the eyes, again, the material I used on some of my other costumes, like 70s Batman and a few others, is just rubber buckram, rubber mesh. I know in the comics the Vision has these deep, dark eyes highlighted by little glowing pupils, and I thought of ways to make that happen, but once I finished this, I really liked the look that those eyes give, just as big black orbs. Well, half circles, I guess you'd say. Very effective. And because this fits over the hood, as you'll see later, of course there's Velcro attachments. The answer pieces, of course, on top of the hood right before it starts at my forehead, which we will look at. Now you heard me mention, as far as talking about the mask and the gloves and a few other places, that kind of circuitry motif, that techno motif. Once again, online you can find these very simple templates, which really help me with the mask and the gloves, either using spray paint, as you can see, these are gold and black. Black for the gloves and part of the mask, and gold for the face mask. Very inexpensive, or you can use pens and markers within the lines of these very inexpensive templates and stencils. You know, you got different sizes. I never use these. I was happy to keep continuing with that one type. Again, a very simple and inexpensive way to get those extra effects, extra little details to your cosplay. Of course, with the gloves, I wanted to go with a gold motif, just like with the boots and the cape and whatnot. In the comics, of course, yellow had to stand in for gold due to those more limited coloring processes. Now, on the gloves, I used a template to make some interesting designs. Talk about a continuing motif. You'll notice I very subtly added a kind of fading in and out circuitry motif, just like with the suit. But again, it's one of those details, have to kind of look closely to notice it. And like I said, you noticed also on the design for the bodysuit, something that sort of continues the pointed nature of the gloves as seen in the comics. A lot of fun. They fit well. You can find these on eBay or Amazon, either as evening gloves or just party gloves. You have to watch out for the length because many come much higher than this and you have to roll them down. Some are a little shorter. I don't know why in superhero comics every hero has gloves that start pretty much, 2 inches below the elbow, 3 inches? Only Daredevil has kind of shorter gloves. But all those traditional superheroes all seem to get their gloves from the same manufacturer. Now, let's look at the boots. So a search online for just gold costume boots yielded these. Fairly elaborate. Nice motif. Yeah, a little bit disco-y, a little bit, a little bit new wave, a little bit Rod Stewart, a little bit Village People. But this is a character who isn't quite your traditional superhero. Again, the tops, I misspoke earlier. They don't have flat tops. They actually have kind of a dip V top. But the motif on the suit leg, as I designed it, the bodysuit leg, comes up with that little point we see in the comics version. Again, going with gold, as he was supposed to appear in the comics. Again, Iron Man was supposed to be red and gold, but we got him colored red and yellow, because back then, the printing and the coloring was a little bit more limited, and the colorists had to get a little more creative. Great fit, easy to slip into and out of, and not expensive. Same with the gloves. This is a costume where, unlike my other costume and cosplays that seem to take, 6, 7, 8 months, I gave myself a 2-month deadline with this character, and I couldn't believe how quickly it came together. And part of that was because finding the boots and gloves with no modifications. I'm going to show you the belt that didn't take any modifications. Neither did the cape, really. The cape had some minor modifications, but not a lot. So I was astounded that a cosplay of mine could come together this quickly with so few customizations and adjustments. Like, is that even possible? Apparently it is. All right, let's look at the belt. Once again, this is just a Party City belt. This is called sort of a gold waist cincher. And this is really made for, I think, women's costumes, women portraying Cleopatra, or the movies versions of Cleopatra, where this goes more around the waist, not the hips. And it's extremely tight. It simply snaps in the back. As you can see, simple snaps. The thing about the Vision that makes him unusual, his design, is, let's take a look here. Even as a kid, I realized he had a strange kind of belt. Most superheroes either have a Batman-sized utility belt or something a little thinner like Captain America, who always seemed just to be wearing a Sears and Roebuck keep your pants up belt. But the Vision had like a wrestling belt, or this large kind of girdle almost. And I knew with my physique that wasn't going to work out. I'm very long-legged and short-waisted. And anything that covers up that midsection is going to make you look even more squat. I talked about that in my Adam West costume tutorial, how Adam was in great shape, but that huge belt and the cape covering his broad shoulders made him look like he had a very squat torso and very long legs. This belt in my costume, as you can see, as worn, worked out great. Looks pretty much like the comic belt. Yes, I thought about adding some adornments that gave him those 3 stripes, but I like the fact that this belt kind of had a V motif, the letter V, and just works well with the character. One of the coolest things about the comic book Vision was that he had a nice thick gold chain attaching his collar and cape. And few other superheroes had such an accessory except maybe Captain Marvel, the Shazam character. So, again, sorry Mr. T. Found this at a dollar store. Also, Spirit Halloween has it. Cheap costume jewelry. This just fits, as you will see soon, just over the collar with no attachment. It's heavy enough just to stay in place. So, it's the details. Earlier, we mentioned the Village People, Rod Stewart. So I guess that's a good lead into talking about the trunks. Yes, you can find anything online. These are itsy bitsy little gold lame trunks. Be careful when you put in certain search terms. But no, these work great for the character. I actually had to take them up on the sides, the upper thigh, because I didn't want to draw comparisons between this version of the Vision and how he appears on WandaVision, where the famous Halloween costume, which references the comic book version of the costume, where it looks like the Vision is going out trick-or-treating with wearing long yellow boxer shorts. So the more I could keep the legs high off the upper thigh, the better. And that's all I'm going to say about this as far as the fit and the wear and the elasticity of this particular garment, because there are some things cosplayers need to find out on their own. So let's talk about a piece of costume design that sets the Vision apart from many other comic book characters. He's got this really cool high collar that sort of wraps around the back of his head, wraps over to the sides. I wanted to replicate that, maybe in a slightly smaller version. So what I did was I found online, I'll try to run the link somewhere in this very picture, to make out of foam board this is really a design for an elaborate external collar, like for people that do period piece costumes, think Game of Thrones, like that. And I knew I could adapt this to what I needed. And basically the template is how to shape and attach the pieces. Also using a hot air gun to get some of this bending and molding and peaks and valleys. But once I had that, I thought, I can just maybe attach to the top the collar pieces I need. And I did that. But first what I did, I took the collar off a dress shirt I no longer wear and used that beneath the added foam pieces as a guide. Using fabric stiffener, I was able to put this in, the actual fabric top. And then carefully cut pieces that could be put on top of that, molded, glued into place. A lot of patience, so that you've got something approximating the Vision's collar. Looks great in profile. Again, this is nowhere near as elaborate or as ornate as the Vision's comic book collar, which takes up, the sides of his head, almost comes up to the upper portion of the back of the head. Any cosplayer that's worked with masks knows anything that cuts off peripheral vision you want to avoid the best you can. Sometimes it can't be helped wearing these masks like Batman, Spider-Man. It's really bad at conventions when you don't have that peripheral vision and people are coming up and jostling you that you never see. It's not a fun experience. So it sits like this as you're about to see on the character, on the actual figure. Doesn't attach as far as this is concerned here at the clavicle. But there's Velcro, as you can see inside, to attach it to the upper part of the costume. The neck and the shoulders and trapezoids, which we'll see later. You can still see some of the original colors of the board there where it didn't get all that gold spray paint. Fairly comfortable to wear, it's lightweight, and it really works well with the rest of the costume. A lot of fun. Okay, let's get a look at the Vision's cape. Again, I went looking online and found pretty much what's called a wizard's cape. Let me show you the graphic here, how it looks online. Yes, it has an attached hood, which the Vision does not have in his comic book costume, but I thought this could add some weight to the head, make up for the smaller collar I designed, something he could take on and off, and just give him that look in profile or in silhouette. It would just give him that look of having that area taken up by gold to get across that main look. Now, I know it makes him look a bit like DC Comics' The Spectre, but I thought that would be an interesting new wrinkle on the character. Because again, my aim isn't just to reproduce slavishly what we've already seen in the comics, but to give some of these things a new twist. Some of these things a new look simply because of practicality, or because it works better in 3D than it does on the flat comic book page, or just because it's something interesting for fans to notice and get. Now you notice this has a great kind of ethereal, shiny sheen and pattern. Not necessarily a techno pattern or a circuitry pattern, but a nice shimmery pattern all its own. The inside is black, but it's semi-transparent, diaphanous, glossy. A nice mysterious look for the character, who of course in the comics wears a gold cape. Now, this came with strings that attached it, drawstrings. They attached it around the neck. I cut those off. Now you see there's Velcro. Which kind of wraps under the collar and attaches in certain places. And works really well. Very simple. Again, something I amazingly just found online for very little money. Okay, now, the moment of truth. Let's call in the man himself, the android, the Synthazoid, whatever. He's funny about these personal appearances, but I'm going to go see if I can find him and bring him in, and he'll appear right in front of you, in front of your unbelieving eyes. Let me just go find the guy. It's 1 minute. I thought he'd never shut up. Okay, well there you have it. Let's take a look at how some of this goes together like I promised earlier. Of course, the face mask is simply Velcroed here on top of the hood, the attached hood that's printed with the rest of the bodysuit, and of course has the facial area cut out. Velcro right here inside. Easy fit. Hides everything. Okay, and now for the cape. The cape, of course, goes over the collar, which you'll see is connected to the bodysuit, and it just attaches with two pieces of Velcro inside the collar. You saw all that inner collar earlier, right here. Then, of course, as you can see, the cape further attaches to the upper shoulders to fit just right. Good old Velcro, huh? All right, now, let's get that cape put away. And as you can guess, like you saw earlier, the collar attaches both at the outer traps, inside of the neck. And because it's so light, made of foam, it stays in place. But because it's so light and delicate, you've got to really be careful fastening it and unfastening it to the bodysuit and cape. And there we go. Of course, the chain just lays underneath all that. But you can see collar, cape, and the cape further attaches inside the neck piece with these further Velcro pieces. Seems complicated, but it's really not. Here's something else interesting I did with the cape. Yes, I showed you earlier how it attaches with Velcro inside the collar right here. And of course attaches at the shoulder with this piece of Velcro right here. Let me take that off and I'll show you an interesting feature. I detach it from the shoulder here, and you'll see I've added another piece of Velcro that I can attach here, so no Velcro. No Velcro will now snag the suit at all. These Lycra suits, for some reason, they're very susceptible to fur balling and scratching. You can't even wear a jacket over these things without marring them or somehow scratching them in any way. So now the cape hangs free, and I can do this with nothing to catch it. It's still attached here, of course, but both sides can be made to completely hang free like that. Once again, on this side, these two join, and you've got the cape hanging down over the upper torso, just like that. A lot of fun, very versatile. All these little bits of engineering, these little bits of finagling to make these suits do what we want them to do. It can be fun. So that's it. Thank you for joining me. I hope you like this look at the 1960s and 70s vision. You know I love those big, bold, iconic, graphic, in-your-face characters. I'm always looking to the 60s and 70s to come up with these cosplay ideas, challenging myself to see if I can bring them to life. It's not always easy, but as you saw with this character, not a lot of money and time was involved to get the effects I needed. Sure, I designed the bodysuit, had it printed overseas like the rest of my bodysuits, but everything else was purchased fairly inexpensively. Took a lot of engineering to get some things like the cape and the collar to work, but even those are inexpensive materials. So let me know if you have any questions, if I can help you with your cosplay, answer anything I may have missed answering here in this video. I wish you good luck in your cosplay endeavors. It's just another form of creativity that we can use to express ourselves. And I encourage you to express yourself and have fun and make art, whether it's cosplay, painting, music, dance, whatever. Make art. So this is Al Bigley saying, thanks for joining me. So long, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.